Welcome to another episode of Giving All of My Experience. I am your host, Rashaad.
And I'm Chade.
In today's episode, we will be talking about breaking cycles and building a legacy for your family. One of my favorite things to discuss. What you think about that topic?
I think it's going to be good. So much about
Why?
because I just feel
Just let
you've
it
been
out.
laughing. You've been laughing since earlier, and then when you was like 1, 2, I still was thinking in my head 1, 2, 3 to the 4. Oh yeah.
Oh,
Okay, got it out.
Jesus. She got it out. Thank you for joining us again on another episode of
Welcome.
Giving All of My Experience. Again, we're talking about breaking generational curses and building a legacy for your family. And I feel like before we can really deep dive into breaking generational cycles, you have to talk about where like somehow somehow mindsets came from, like from our
Mm-hmm.
childhood, the things that we learned, um, the things that happened in our life. Like one of my biggest things was because my mom was a single mom, she believed in tough love. Um, and I'm not gonna say how tough love wasn't emotional support, but it was tough love. I'm a boy. Like, don't boys don't cry. You
Mm.
don't show your weakness, type of thing. What you think about that? Like, what was something that you experienced growing up? As far as it don't have to just be tough love or emotional support,
Mm-hmm.
but like, what's something that you experienced that you felt like kind of stuck with you through a childhood? Maybe it was a saying that your mother used to say,
Oh, I
and you
got
started
one.
saying it now as an adult.
Well, I wouldn't say necessarily say because now knowing that we have Chloe on the way, I want to emphasize this, but as harshly as my mom did, my mom, she had me at 14. So her biggest thing was, you better not get pregnant. She didn't like, she, of course, didn't want me to have sex at an early age. But if I did have sex at an early age, you better not bring home no babies because if you bring home a baby, you and your baby gotta go. So I never forget like each and every birthday from I want to say from 10 on up, it was a celebration for me because I did exactly what she told me not to do, which was get pregnant. And once I reached age 14, I really got excited because I was like, oh my gosh, I finally did it. I felt like I had I was safe. And I still became like I still was safe up until when I met Rashaad because he's the only person I had a child with. So I stayed safe up until 19.
So that stuck with you.
That stuck with me.
I
Is
w-
if I remember one thing, it was you better not get pregnant, and that was
they
her.
don't play that.
No, Zine didn't play that. She was like, "You get pregnant, you and your baby, y'all gotta go. That's the way to go." Which is so crazy because my grandmother did not do that to her. Because my mother, she didn't grow up with both parents. Her mother was a drug addict, so she was in and out of her life. And when when she got pregnant at 13 and had me at 14, when she came to my grandmother, her and my dad, he was a year older than her, telling her that, I'm expecting a child, my grandmother, she took her in with open arms. Like it wasn't, oh, you got to get out. I'm putting you out.
Right.
Now, I would say one person who did disown my mother at the time was her godmother. She took it really hard and she like basically went MIA when she found out that my mother was
Everybody
pregnant.
deals with like emotional with big
Yeah.
news differently.
And she also, not to keep it, she also just was telling her godmother at the time was like, basically telling her that she wasn't going to ever make it, and neither was her daughter, which is me. And
Oh,
look at us.
well, you made it.
Yep, I
There
did.
you go. I think the biggest thing that stuck with me is like what I was talking about earlier was the not showing your emotions, the tough love, and versus like the emotional support. And I just feel like, tough love is very important. Like tough love, it builds thick skin, it builds resiliency. I feel like it prepares you for everything, but I also feel like that emotional support builds trust. And at times, like, me and my mom, we got a good relationship, but I just feel like at times, because of some of the ways that she parented me when I was growing up, it built a wedge like in between. So because it wasn't a lot of emotional support. And that's not to say she
Mm-hmm.
wasn't supporting me emotionally, but I remember vividly more tough love moments than I do
Mm-hmm.
emotional support moments. And I just feel like as parents, especially with us having four boys, and now we're bringing a baby girl back into this world, that we have to start breaking the cycles. Like we have to remind our boys daily that you don't have to suppress your emotions.
Yes.
Like
You can talk about
you can
this.
talk about things. Talk about things. Like I feel like it's strength in being vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
It's strength in being vulnerable. And I'm not telling them to just walk around here and just cry about everything, wear your heart on your sleeve. But if you're hurt, you're hurt. Say something. Like that's the only way we're gonna be able to fix the problem.
Yeah.
You got to give us the source so we can attack it. And I think we do that very well with the kids when we're having conversation with them, even if it's a tough conversation about them not completing a chore, or maybe they did something wrong in school. If they are crying, we'll catch ourselves from time to time just saying like, "What's wrong? Like, are your feelings hurt? And if so, explain why. Like,
Mm-hmm.
explain to us why you're crying so we can understand
Yeah.
what you're going through." Because I feel like that's the only way that we're going to build them up to break our cycle. Like
Yeah.
right now, I'm not. I'm still trying to break my cycle, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
more so worrying about them breaking our cycle, the things that
Yeah.
we endured growing up and stuff like that. So I feel
Yeah.
like it's just making sure that we teach this our generation coming up that emotions is not a weakness. It's
Yeah.
is a strength. It's a form of wisdom. Like
A form
it's
of awareness,
yeah.
being aware of those feelings, and I would like to agree with still learning how to do that because I want to say, um, my like in my household, we rarely said I love you, gave hugs. Like from what I can remember, rarely said I love you, gave hugs and stuff like that, hugs and kisses. I remember, I think it was only like last week, I told you, I was like, I feel like I need to tell the boys that I love them more because if I don't,
They just randomly walk around the house just saying I love
but like they do it more now, but it used to be like when they were younger, they were always saying it, like coming to the steps, mommy, daddy, I love you. Messiah does it still to this day. Cameron and Curtis not as much, but like Curtis, she does make sure, like he'll make sure he tells me he loves me before he goes to bed and kisses me on my cheek. He'll make sure he tell me that he loved me before he leave the house. Cameron sometimes he's a little closed in, but he'll tell, will make sure I say it more often when they leave out of the house, when before they go to bed as well.
you.
So just making sure that you do that for your kids because you also don't want them to think that you don't love them and now they have to find love from somewhere else, from a different person.
Yeah,
So
that's definitely not a good thing. And I think outside of tough love and emotional support, the biggest thing that stuck to me was like the money mindset in the house. Like the
mm,
saying that used to always stick with me, and I caught myself using it as a parent was, "Money don't grow on trees,"
hmm
and it's just like we kind of were raised in a household where we had a scarce mindset when it came to money. Like money was a very sensitive topic, and
hmm
that's because our parents wasn't doing well financially. They were doing the best that they can
hmm
in the circumstances that they were in, and that's not to talk bad about them, but that was just the thing. Everything was like you have to save, you have to save, you have to save, but nobody in our family talked about investing, taking a risk. Like you can save all you want, but saving is not going to beat inflation. You
yeah.
got to do some type of form of investing. So I feel like now with the things that I'm learning with me being in school right now for financial planning, learning about money, studying it daily because I'm listening to podcasts, I'm reading books, I'm watching YouTube videos. just doing different things to learn about money. I feel like now we have to teach that to our kids. So rather than us teaching them that scarce money mindset, we're teaching them like that abundance mindset where they're going to learn about money. They're going to have a wallet at an early age like they do. They're going to learn about tithing and storing their money
That's really
into the
nice.
ministries and charities that they really believe into. They're going to learn about putting money away. They're going to learn about investing. They're going to learn about making passive income because that's breaking our curse. That's really breaking our curse. And we're technically doing that right now. Like we're
Yeah.
technically breaking the curse right now because we're really big on teaching our kids
Mm-hmm.
financial literacy.
Like tithing, we every so besides with us, of course, he lives with us full time. But the boys, when they come to church, here's $1, and it's to the point where we've gotten like sometimes some Sundays it's $1, some Sundays it's $5, and they tithe. And there's been times when they take it upon themselves and tithe twice. Like they'll tithe in the church and then
Yeah, I think
they'll
Messiah
go,
did that Sunday. I gave
yeah,
him
and
five
then
dollars and he threw
yeah,
that in the bucket. Then
he
when
threw
he went
that
to
and
church, the
then
church
went
just put
to
another dollar.
children's church
Yep.
and gave another dollar. And
Mm-hmm.
that's just his mindset growing like, oh, if I like this is what I see my parents doing, so I'm gonna do the same thing. This Christmas, my cousin was like, what you want me to get for them for Christmas? Piggy banks. She was like, seriously? Piggy banks. And she got all of them piggy banks with their names on them. I thought that was the cutest thing ever. And once those came, my dad, he also invests into them. So he gave him $5. When he comes over every Sunday, he'll give him $1 here, $2 here. He said, add this to your piggy bank. Another thing is when they got money for Christmas, Cameron is still working on his, and most of them are still working on their money
From Christmas.
from Christmas
Yeah.
because we also their grandparents. Well, my mother-in-law got them wallets, and my grandmother-in-law got them wallets as well, so they can keep their money.
Girl, slow down.
Am I talking fast? Keep their money in
Yeah.
their wallets. But instead of us letting them have their wallets, we actually put it in our room and we call ourselves the banks. So the bank is only open to them on Fridays. On Fridays, I'll let them get $2. And if I look inside of your wallet and I see that you're running low on funds, your bank is closed until we can replenish that money until it gets like in some type of increase, because I also don't want you to think that you're supposed to just spend everything.
Yeah.
It's good for you to also save and have, because there might come a time where we go out somewhere and you're like, oh snap, my mother, she told me she put a pause on my money, and I remind myself I got like 10, 15, or $20 left in my bank. It's our responsibility as parents to show them these things early, because you talked about savings being talked about at home. Nobody talked about savings in my house at all.
No, I mean, it really. I'm not only. And this again. I was stuttering. This is not to discredit my mom or anything like that. Only person that really talked about savings was my grandmother.
Yeah,
My
you
grandmother
was
used to
telling me
always
that.
talking about like a rainy day fund, a kitty fund, or something like that. And that's not to say that my mother didn't talk about it, but she was pretty much like the biggest person that I was around on a day to day basis that talked about it. And
Mhm,
again, that's not to talk down about our parents. And I'm pretty sure people who gonna watch this, parents went through this as well. Was
mhm,
that when you're a single mother and you're taking care of kids? My mother had two kids to take care of. Money was tight.
mhm.
You
You
gotta, you
don't think
got me.
about
Like my thing
saving.
was, I was 12 years old and I was wearing a size 10 in men. So it was like, and I was 6 feet at 11. So it was like, it was just different things that my mother had to go through that I know her pockets was hurting.
Mhm.
Junior be killing me right now.
Yeah, Junior is 12 and he's almost in a size 13.
Yeah, like so I definitely get it. So that's the reason why now we focused on our money. We focused on, teaching financial literacy because the thing about it is we want to make sure that when they become our age, they're not still going through the accountability phase of money. They're not still going through the learning curve of money. They already going to know what to do with their money as soon as they turn 18. Because when they turn 18, these accounts that's going to be rolled over into their name, with this money
Mhm.
that's going to be rolled over into their name, they're going to know how to manage it.
Manage it,
Because if
yeah.
we give them the money that we plan on giving them when they turn 18 and they don't have any rules, any structure, they
Blow
just
it.
going to blow through it. And we're doing them a disservice by giving them something and not making them earn it or understand what's the logic behind it? Like really understand how monies work. And the other thing I would say that we do a very good job of breaking the curses in our house is like the gender roles in the household. You know,
Yes.
most of the time, again, because we lived in a household where it was just our mom. But when our mom maybe did have a boyfriend or a friend or someone that you looked at as like a stepfather, our mother still did most of the cooking. Our mother still
Mhm.
did most of the cleaning.
Mhm.
You know, the father or the boyfriend or whatever you want to call them, they did the working. They probably did pay the bills. I don't know what the financial things was, but when we come down to gender roles, that's what we see. We see men provide, we see women nurture. In our household, we just thrive off of teamwork. Like
Yes.
we thrive off
Real
of
big on
teamwork.
teamwork.
We don't care about what is what. Prime example, you off today. You stay home. I was at work. You offered to cook dinner. No, what are you cooking dinner for? I already said that I was cooking dinner. Well, I'm home, but I already said I was cooking dinner. And that's not me telling you, no, you can't cook, but that was just me already saying that, like, listen, I had already had the plans of cooking because you originally was supposed to go to work. So if you're not going to work because your body was in overdrive, your body's tired, why would I then ask you to stand on your feet and cook inside of a hot kitchen? Let me come home and do that. You relax. You took the day off. Go ahead and relax and do what you planned on doing. So I
Mhm.
feel like we do a very good job on that, like raising our kids and explaining to them to base their roles off of strengths and not stereotypes. And what I mean by that is that like we'll make jokes. Like I know you'll make jokes to camera, like you better do what your father be doing. You better cook a meal for your wife, this, that, and the third. So it's like they're growing up in a house where they see their mom and they see their dad cook.
Mhm.
They see their mom clean, they see their dad clean. They see
Mhm.
their mom wash clothes. They see me wash clothes periodically.
Yes. When mom is in overdrive and I just can't do
So
it.
it's one of those things where I feel like we do a very good job on um not being big on gender roles. Like we just work off whatever works for the team. Like I think we do a very good job of that. And the other thing I will really say is just us being self aware. Um,
It's very important.
Yeah, being self aware is very important, and that's not just for yourself. That's just for everything that's around you. And we go through times where we do have moments where we're on autopilot, where our brains may be stuck on one bad thing because we might got some stuff going on in our mind, and we may start repeating some toxic cycles that
Mhm.
we didn't even realize was affecting our environment.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people don't really think about that. Like the things that you do, like I think you talked about this before, when your mom would get upset, she would shelter herself inside of the room
Yes. Preach.
until she kind of got out of her funk. And
Mhm.
at the time, for her, that's what worked for her. So again, that's not to talk bad about it. That's what worked for her. But
Yeah.
at the same time, with her body being on autopilot, that toxic behavior then spewed over to her kids,
Mhm.
because then that caused you to step up and be the adult of the house, to
Mhm.
do the cooking, to do the cleaning,
Get my
fixing
sister
your
ready for
hair,
school.
doing angel hair, getting y'all ready for school. So I feel like us being self-aware of ourselves, it really helps us. And then you big on this, talking to the kids when you see them waking up in a negative like a negative mood in the morning. Like Cameron
Yeah.
goes through it a lot, having those
Yeah.
self-talks with
He's
them.
not a morning person at
Yeah,
all.
no.
He doesn't. I feel like almost every day he wakes up on the wrong side of the bed because I think that's just a part of, like, he loves to sleep and that's fine. But I wouldn't say every day. There are some days where he can wake up in the best mood ever and he's just a happy go lucky kid. But those days when he's not in the best of mood, I try to get it out of him to see, what's going on. And it could be just that he didn't get enough sleep or he feel like he didn't get enough sleep or something is on his mind. And then there are times when your kids, and I know for Cameron's sake, he may not want to talk about it right away. So I say,
Hmm.
okay, when you are ready, talk about it. But I also remind him, please do not put your frustration or your anger on your brothers because it messes up the whole morale of the morning. He is still learning that part, but he's gotten a lot better at it. And he's also got a lot a lot better at, okay, I know I don't feel like talking about it right now. And he'll come back to me like, okay, I'm ready to talk now. And it took a lot for us to get to that point because he would, I remember when we first moved around here, he would walk around like angry, so angry. It could be something small that happened outside, and he just got tears rolling down his face
But
because he got so much
you got,
anger.
but then you got to look at it that it goes back to what we were just talking about, the self awareness.
Hmm.
We went through moments still early in our relationship, still figuring out how to communicate with each other, or we would go through days where we wouldn't speak to each other. Like
Yeah.
we would still have like family days and watch TV in the living room, cook dinner, wouldn't say a word to each other. So for them, that's how they felt like when you're upset, it's
That's how
cool
you
to shut
supposed to.
the world out. But you, every morning that you've seen him in a negative mood, talking to him on a daily basis, having those self talks with him, it started challenging his old beliefs and
Hmm.
started forcing new habits. Again, breaking generational curses.
Yeah.
Because what would happen is most of the time, if we woke up in our house with a stink attitude, it turned into a good cuss out,
Hmm.
or you was getting your ass whipped. It is just that plain and simple. It's really that plain and simple.
Yeah.
That's really just what it was. It's just
Because who are you to have an attitude? I'm
right.
the only one that should have an
And then you
attitude
got the
because
nerve
I'm,
to not talk to me in the house that I pay bills in.
oh no, we got a problem. It was never like, okay, so what's going on? No, we got a problem because who you got an attitude with?
Right.
I
So
pay bills in here. I'm the one that's broke. I'm the only one that have the attitude. I just paid the gas and electric.
it
It
get
ain't got nothing
crazy.
left.
It get crazy.
Oh
I'm telling you, it
gosh.
get crazy. So
Bringing
that's
back
another.
flashbacks.
Yeah, but that's another thing. That's another thing right there that we're tackling our old belief systems that we may have seen in ourselves, like as adults in a marriage, and things that we went through as a kid. And rather than us watching our kids go through that, we like, no, we ending this cycle right here.
Yeah.
We're gonna find a way to get through this. So I encourage everybody that's watching this and that's listening to this to write down one thing that you feel like you need to unlearn from your childhood.
Mm,
I don't know what it is. I can't really give you an example, but take the time down to write one or two things that you want to unlearn from your childhood and come up with a plan on how you can unlearn how you can unlearn it. And then when you write it down, really seriously ask yourself like where did this thought process come from?
yeah.
Where did this belief come from? And is it serving me right now? Is it doing me a purpose right now? Is this
Yes.
so? I really feel like challenging your beliefs is great because then it forces you to challenge your kids.
Hmm.
Like now, Cameron know, like, all right, if I wake up in the attitude, I got to at least get myself together before I get around my mother because she gonna
Hmm.
make me do a talk, and I don't want to do this talk.
Yeah, because I don't even want to. I don't want to talk to nobody right now, so I got to get myself together. And that's I'm cool with that. I'm telling you, our mornings has gotten they have grown so much. They have grown so much because we had power struggles in here. And most of the stuff like what I was just laughing about are stuff that I used to do. Like I was mad because I'm like, okay, so what you waking up with an attitude for? I'm the only one that should be mad around here because I just paid X, Y, Z, and now I ain't got nothing to myself. Well, I just bought you this, that, and now I'm trying to figure out what you're mad about. But I had to unlearn that habit from my childhood.
Mm-hmm.
You'd be surprised that I think I talked about this before on one of my talks. You'd be surprised that the things that you try to preach to your kids are the very things that you're probably doing. Like, and it's not your fault. It's because of that's how your cycle was as a child. So you're only doing what you're taught, just like our parents. They only did what they were taught. And that's why, like, you should like I wouldn't necessarily say to ever blame have put fault on your parents for the things that happened because truly they only used the tools that they were given
Yeah, and
or that
then
was provided for
to
them.
your point is I think I seen a saying somewhere where it was like your kids do as they see, not as they
They're
told.
told. Hmm.
And to your point, we just talked about it. We will go days of not talking to each other. So
Hmm.
they're like, all right, well, they're cool. That's how our parents suppress their emotions. That's how they do when they got an attitude with each other.
Yeah,
You know,
they just didn't talk.
so they thought that that was the same cool thing. And because we're talking about talking and we're talking about emotions, we're talking about feelings. I feel like the next biggest thing is being able to start a healing process. Like, you
Mhm.
know, you're in therapy right now.
Yeah.
I have started therapy. I feel like to be able to break generational curses, to break the cycles, you have to unpack that trauma.
Mhm.
And one of the things that my therapist was telling me was that just from the childhood that I had, the upbringing that I had, is that I dealt with a lot of emotional abuse. And she explained to me, and she stressed to me, it's not because, you know, I was in a bad environment. It's not that, you know, my mother was a bad person, but it was just the tone of our conversations,
Mm.
the words that was being conveyed in our arguments, you
Those
know,
words
being,
matter.
yeah, being kind of belittled when because your parent is upset, so they say things that they really don't mean. They're just trying to let you know, like, look, mug, I'm serious,
Yeah.
so listen,
Yeah.
XYZ. So she was explaining that to me, and that's one of the things where you start thinking, like, well, damn, am I doing that to my kids now? So you
Mhm.
unpacking those traumas, you talking to your therapist, now that is healing you internally, so you then can turn around and make it better for your kids, so when they have their kids, they don't have to go through a struggle until their
Mhm.
kids 9, 10 years old, where they're now figuring out how to have communication with their kids, how to rather than yelling at them, have a stern conversation and talk to them like
Mhm.
a human being.
Yeah. And if you're too, one of my managers tell me, like, I learned this in school. My job has taught me a lot of ways to be patient
Hmm.
and a lot of different communication skills. So I'm grateful for the job that I have now. But if you were too upset, and I'm still learning this, if you are too upset, sometimes it's best for you to take a step back, because you might say something to your child that they will take with them. You might call them out their name and you didn't even mean to say that. You might say some things to them that you just didn't even mean to say. And now those words are stuck with them, because there are a lot of, like, a list of words that my mother has said to me that stuck with me, that hindered me, that, like, just changed my whole belief in myself
Yeah,
within
like killed your
me, that
confidence.
killed my confidence. And I still struggle. Rashaad will tell you, I still struggle sometimes with confidence. It's a constant thing for me. I still struggle sometimes with validation, and me just knowing my worth. And it's not to say that he doesn't even give a lot. It's just that I'm still unpacking those things
Yeah,
that I was told when I was a child.
yeah.
So because my mother got so hot and heated in the moment,
She would say
they
things that
would
she
say,
truly didn't mean.
like just like stupid, even sometimes being called out my name, the big
Yeah,
word. Like,
but
so,
yeah,
like, those are, and that's because she was just so hot, stupid beat. Like, she was just so hot in the
yeah,
moment.
she ain't know what to
She
say,
didn't
so she
even know
just
what to
raged
say.
out
So she
anything.
raged off of emotions.
Hmm.
And it ended up sticking with me. And I'm getting a lot better, but there are times when I go through moments of just like, no, I need to be revalidated, because I think that I'm not smart enough. I think that I'm not good enough. I think that I'm not worthy enough. This school year alone, I've had to literally pump myself up
I have self
and
talks.
have self talks because of those
But
things.
I feel like that's when you have that, like, yeah, you have that therapist that you talk to talk about your trauma, so they can help
Hmm.
unpack on a professional level. But then that's when the spiritual thing come into place.
Yes.
That's when you pray. Prayer keeps you grounded, and
Hmm.
when you pray, you gotta have faith. But the thing that people keep forgetting about faith is that faith requires action. You
Yes.
can't just be walking around talking about God going to heal me.
Hmm.
But what are you doing to be healed? Are you taking 30 minutes in the morning to meditate? Are you listening to spiritual
Hmm.
podcasts or soaking music on your way to work? Are you stored into the Bible at night before you go to bed? Are you praying to him when things are tough? Or
Hmm.
are you only talking to him when things are tough? But when things are good, you ain't nowhere to be
You
found.
like, all right, and it's basically like, I think I saw this today. Doing stuff like that is basically like when you pray to God only when you're in help, when you're in need, and then when things are good, it's basically telling God that you don't need Him for the day.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need your help today. I got this. When truly you need him every day. You don't got it. Because without him and his strength and his understanding and not your own, it's like you lost.
Yeah,
You look like
and
you're the lost sheep.
yeah, and then when you working on that faith part, the faith part requires action. So people probably be like, "Oh, well, what's the action?" The action is the hardest parts. It's the discipline. It's the
Mm-hmm.
boundaries. It's the accountability. Like, when it's being disciplined and praying nightly, disciplined,
Mm-hmm.
praying daily, meditating, reading His Word, setting boundaries. Maybe, hey, I can't go to this party because
Mm-hmm.
I'm working on, getting closer with God, or maybe I'm going on a financial fast where I really can't spend no money on what y'all got going on. I still
Mm-hmm.
love you. It's no disrespect to you, but I'm really working on something right now that I can't do. That's setting a boundary. And it's just being accountable. If you slip up and you make a mistake, we were just talking about this on my car ride home from work. When you're being accountable for your actions, just be accountable. You made a mistake. It's okay. We're human. We were just talking about this. Jesus was the only perfect human being, the only soul that walked the face of this earth.
Mm-hmm.
He said in his word that we were born into sin. That's why he
And
died
shape
on the
into
cross
iniquity.
for us.
Yep.
That's why he died on the cross for us.
Mm-hmm.
And he said they don't even understand.
He said, "God forgive them,
They don't even
forgive them, because
understand.
they don't understand what they are even doing."
They don't even understand. So when you make a mistake, be accountable for your mistake, because the thing about the mistakes is when you make a mistake and you continue to make that mistake again, you're separating yourself from God. You're soaking
Mm-hmm.
yourself into sin, which the devil wants.
Mm-hmm.
God understands you're
Mm-hmm.
going to make mistakes. You're a human. We're designed to make mistakes. We were born into sin. What God wants for you to do is that He wants you to make that mistake, but then come back to Him and repent. Come back to Him and confess. What He doesn't want for you to do is make that mistake and then be like, well, oh, damn, I done done it now. I might as well go ahead and just keep doing it.
Keep doing it.
So when
Because
you
I
do
already
that,
made
now
my
you
bed.
building that bridge, you
Yes.
separating away
Mm-hmm.
from God. So when you're going through these things and you're trying to untap, you're trying to tap into that unhealed trauma, these are the things that you got to do, because healing starts with us. It starts with me. It starts with Sade. That's the only way we're going to be able to break that cycle with our kids, because you can pass down unhealed wounds. We don't want to pass down unhealed wounds because you
Mm-hmm.
already be having other things that you got going on, and now you taking on somebody else's luggage. Like, that's tough. So,
Mm-hmm.
that's another another cycle that we're breaking right now. So I urge people, get a therapist or
Yes.
talk to a friend, talk to God, most
Get a
importantly,
person. Yeah.
and work on yourself. Be accountable. Start a little plan. Go on a little 3-day fast and just see if you can mentally do it. Do things that's going to challenge your mind and just go all out. Like, it's really that simple.
Yeah.
It's really that simple, and that's one of the things that we really want to make sure that we don't pass to our kids. Just being able to convey how they feel, and so we can fix it. Like, so
Yeah.
we simply can fix it, and that kind of segue us into the next part, is just talking about healthy communication and emotional safety. Encouraging open dialogue instead of just saying just because I said so. So one of the things we
Mm-hmm.
big on is that when we tell the kids to do something and they don't do it correctly, we explain to them why they didn't do
Mm-hmm.
it. We give them the cause and we give them the effect. And
Mm-hmm.
when they ask certain questions, sometimes we may come off and say, don't ask questions, just do what I say. But sometimes you really got to explain to them. You got to give them a manual. You got to let them
Yeah.
know what's going on,
Step by step.
step by step.
Because there's another thing that I'm realizing, that we think that we gotta, and I think I've mentioned this before, sit back and ask yourself, how long has this child been on earth? How long has my child actually been on earth, and where they're cognitively at that developmental stage of their life? And it would open up your mind to a lot of things, and you will begin to like really start to understand how to properly communicate with your child. And don't think also, I'm still learning this, don't think also that you can communicate with each child the same way,
Yeah.
because each child you have is different. They're
Mm-hmm.
different. They are not the same. I don't care if they came from the same mother. I don't care if they came from the same dad. They are not the same. They are all different,
Yeah.
equally different from
Yeah.
each other. So there are levels of things like we know that we can't speak so much of a high tone with Curtis
Yeah. Because as soon as
because
you
soon as you get
elevate your voice,
he
waterworks.
immediately shuts down and starts to cry. So you have to speak at a different tone with him.
Yep.
Cameron, you have to, I feel like with him, you got to make sure that you remind him that he's not in trouble.
Yeah.
That I'm not talking to you because you are in trouble. I'm telling you this so that we can correct this issue.
Yeah.
The same thing with Messiah.
Yeah.
He has to be taught like, okay, I need you to do this correctly. And it's not just like you're not in trouble. And sometimes I had to say it before I even say what I'm going to say, so he don't think
But
that,
he in
oh,
trouble
I'm in
because he
trouble.
another one. He like a
He's
mixture
another
of,
one
but
of
he's a mixture of Curtis and
and
Cameron
Cameron.
because
Yes.
you got to reassure him that he's not in trouble. We're just having a conversation. But
Mm-hmm.
then if you elevate your voice too much, waterworks
Waterworks
immediately,
immediately. So he's
immediately
like a mixture of
waterworks.
them, but like
And then you
learning,
got Junior. With Junior, you just got to be stern
you just gotta be
because if you don't,
because
he's
he
gonna
gonna try to
outtalk you.
overtalk
He gonna
you,
you
overpower you,
you just
and
got to be
you
stern with
just be
him.
like, look, and look, tell him, look into my eyes. We're having a conversation. So there are different levels to how you communicate with your children, and that gives you a healthy way of communicating with that
Yeah, because
child.
I feel like when you open up that healthy dialogue with them, when you explaining things with them, it teaches your kid how to critically think. It teaches them how to express themselves. It really makes them feel heard. Like
Hmm.
it really makes it feel heard. Like I remember when we sat down and we had like our first little family meeting last year, and we talked about chores, and then we talked about the consequences if you don't complete the chores. And we asked them at the end, like, "Well, how y'all feel about the punishments? Y'all feel like they fair?" And I think Curtis or somebody said, "No, I don't like this one." And we was like, I can't remember exactly why he didn't like it, but it was the fact that we was like, "All right, well, tell us what you don't like."
Hmm.
And if it's a valid point, we'll make an adjustment. If it's valid, we'll make an adjustment. So that right there let them know, like, all right, cool. I can tell my parents, you know, when I like or when I don't like something, as
Hmm.
long as I say it in a respectful manner,
Yeah.
as long as is not me, you know, being smart or my tone's very aggressive. Like as long as I'm talking to them and let them know what's going on, they'll let me be heard. So I feel like everybody who has kids, you should try that more often. Break down a scenario to your kid and explain to them. Like we even explained to them about why taking the trash out is so important. Because at the end of the day, you know, their chores and their allowance, that's their paycheck. That's their form of direct deposit. So
Hmm.
if you're not completing the taking the trash out, if you're not washing the dishes, if you're not wiping the table off, you're not sweeping the floor, making your bed up,
You
how
get
are you gonna
paid.
get paid? And then if you can't do that in your own house, how are you going to go out to somebody's job, somebody's multi-millionaire, $1 million business and compete for a salary if you can't even take the trash out at home?
Hmm.
Like I use this analogy at work with these grown men that I work with. I used to say to them, raise your hand if you have to talk to your kid or discipline your kid for bad reports at school. And all of them will raise their hand. So I'm like, now how many times have I pulled one of y'all in the office? Everybody get to laughing. I said the only difference between your kids and you is that your kids know that you know about your kids' mistakes.
They don't see yours.
They don't see yours. But at work, you do the same exact thing they do. So that let me know
Yes.
that you didn't have no accountability in your household. That let me know that you didn't have no discipline in your household. That let me know that you ain't have no boundaries. You don't have no respect for things. So I'm you
Mhm.
sitting here and you talking to these adults that still are not aware of what's going on because their parents didn't harp these things into their minds. So doing this now at an early age for our kids, they already have a leg up on society.
Yeah.
They already have a leg up on society, and that's what it's all about. It's about making sure that your kids are better equipped, making sure that your kids are prepared for the real world. I feel like that's the biggest thing. And what I'll say to you is that it's just like, you know, having those conversations with your kids, I feel like it makes them a better human being because then they get to be able to express themselves to their friends.
Mhm.
Because you know, when you're a kid, you're a hothead. You don't know how to
Mhm.
talk. Everything is
Mhm.
physical. I
Mhm.
want to slap you. I don't like you. I want to fight. But
Mhm.
if now, because I know how to talk because my parents talk to me, maybe we can talk.
Yeah.
So it might not work though. These kids rough.
Yeah, they are.
These kids
They're a little
rough.
different. You might have to slap one or two. We don't condone it, but you better not throw the first punch. But if somebody comes reaching over you, it's fair game.
And the one thing I'll say to you, say to you guys before we get out of here, because I wanted to make this like a short and simple episode, very impactful, just talking about breaking curses and building a new legacy, is that what's one new value or mindset shift, Jesus Christ, mindset shift that you would like to pass down to your family? And I would say write it down and just start practicing it today. Maybe it's more dialogue in the house, like healthy dialogue in the house.
Mhm.
Maybe it's having like family counseling in the house, not going to get a therapist, but maybe you and your kids can sit down and have a conversation. Or if you in that,
Once a month or once a week.
yeah, or maybe if you're in that up tier household, I call it the up tier household because it's an anomaly. When we were growing up, the up tier household is having a mom and a dad. It don't gotta be the birth mom and dad, but having a mom and a dad in the house. If you in that upper tier, sit down and have, like you said, a once a week meeting. Maybe y'all sit at the table, have a dinner, and talk about the school day. Talk about your feelings. Talk about some things that you didn't like or that you did like. Or your week, about your day. It's just different ways to dialogue with your family and dialogue with your kids, and just talking to them, making them better human beings. You got anything before we close it out?
Um, that's one thing that I guess that stuck with me is still thinking about. Goes back to when we was talking about basically like the lost sheep and how Jesus had 99 sheep, well, not 100 sheep, and one of the sheeps got distracted, and that's some of us. Like sometimes we derail and we get distracted and we don't become as aware as we should in our household, and we get stuck and we get stagnant. But I just want to let you know that God will leave 99 sheep just to come to find you and to help you and to save you. So I hope whomever is listening or watching this podcast that you know that you are that special, that it is not too late, that God will leave 99 sheep just to find you, just to make sure that you are good, just to make sure that, okay, you got distracted, but now let's come on back and he'll accept you with open arms. So I hope that
Hmm.
resonate with someone that is listening or watching this podcast.
Yeah. And my last thing before we close it out is that I just got three simple questions for you: is, are you passing down healing or trauma in your current household? Are you passing down healing or trauma? Are you building wealth or are you just surviving? Um, and are you raising your kids to think, feel, and grow, or just to obey? One of the biggest things in my house is that we are raising employees until we become bosses. Because right now, in our current circumstances, I can't say that my kids will never work for somebody because I'm still working for somebody.
Mm-hmm.
So until I own something of my own, my kids will learn to be an employee, but not to obey. They're going to learn how to think for themselves. If this job is not, don't have the same moral code that they live by, they're going to know how to feel. If they feel like they're not being treated the right way, if they're not being valued at work, they're going to learn how to grow. And when I say grow, I mean learn how to develop new skills, learn new things, advancement inside of jobs. So that's three questions that I think that after this episode, you should really ask yourself. Sit down, talk to your spouse, and really ask yourself those questions. Until next time, I'm your boy Rashaad, and thank you for watching another episode of Giving All of My Experience. Like, share, comment, do everything that you possibly do to get that out there to the people. We genuinely appreciate you guys. Until next time, we'll see you later.